In the last episode, we showed you our own take on a sort of PBR texturing workflow inside the new COPS workflow inside of Houdini. And in that workflow, we used a custom HTA that we used to load in a bunch of PBR textures at once and also do some basic edits on those textures and also mix it with a previous set of PBR textures for another material. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to build this HTA, this digital asset, so you can build your own and build your own workflows inside COPS. In an empty scene, let's drop down a GeoNode. Let's dive inside and let's drop down a COP network. And on this COP network, of course, I'm going to set up the defaults first. And the defaults in this case will be to set the resolution to 4K and to make sure that the border is as a default set to wrap. Let's dive inside this COPNet and let's first of all build the standard node tree that will live inside this digital asset. And this will start by loading in a bunch of textures, a bunch of files. So I'm going to start out with some file nodes. I'm going to use 4 of them for 4 PBR channels, so the diffuse channel, the metalness channel, and the roughness channel, and also the normals. And I'm just going to duplicate this 4 more times. And I'm going to just use the default pick in here, because later we're going to exchange this, of course, with our own textures. But this is a nice default value. Now I have to set some stuff up for those different channels. So for the diffuse channel, I need to make sure that the incoming color space is set to OpenColor.io, because this is color data. I'm going to set the channel type to mono. On the metalness, I'm going to set the incoming color space not to OpenColor.io, because this is data. So I'm going to set this to raw. Since this is usually a black and white image, I'm going to set this to mono. And I'm also going to enable raw here as well. The same goes for the roughness. And for the normal, I again want to set the incoming color space to raw, since this is vector data, but I'm going to set the channel type to RGB, and I'm also going to enable raw here as well. These are all my inputs. Next, I want to have a way of transforming all those textures at once, to scale them, to rotate them, and so on. So for this, I'm going to use a transform 2D node. Again, I'm going to need 4 of those. And to make all 4 nodes copy the inputs that I'm setting on this first node right here, I'm going to right-click this node, go to Actions, and create a reference copy. This will create a copy of this node, but on every parameter on this node, I have a relative reference to the parameter on this node. So copy this, and let's wire in all the channels into the right sources, like this. And for some reason, I set the diffuse color channel to mono, and of course, I want to have RGB in here, not mono, like this. After transforming, I want to have just some quick adjustments for each and every channel. So for the diffuse channel, this will just be some HSV adjustments. So let's drop down an HSV adjust node. For the roughness, this will be just controlling the range. So let's drop down a remap node for this. And the metalness and the normal will be a bit special. Let's tackle the metalness first. Now what I want to tweak in here is for some textures that I have in my library, they don't have a dedicated metalness texture because, for example, they're basically just mud, which does not have any metalness in it at all. And so in this case, for those type of textures, I want to be able to just blend between a solid value and the texture value. And to do this, I can use a constant and I can wire in the metalness in here. And now I have here this value that will control the metalness of the solid color. And I have a mask in here where I can blend between my solid color and my metalness texture. Like this. And finally, for the normal, I want to control the normal strength. And unfortunately, searching the nodes, we don't have a dedicated normal strength node in here. So we have to get a bit creative here. And in this case, again, I'm going to use a constant. And I'm going to set the constant value. Let's first of all wire in a texture in here. I'm going to set this constant value to a value of 0.5, 0.5 and 1. And what this essentially is a normal map without any kind of bumps. So now just by blending with this mask value between our original normal map and our blend normal map right here, I can control the strength of this normal map. These are all my adjustments. Let's now control the blending between a PBR material coming in and this PBR material that we're dealing with here. So for this, let's make some more room here between our channels. And sort of as a dummy channel that is going in, I'm going to use a layer node. And on those layer nodes, again, I have to choose the right signature. So for the RGB channel, this will be an RGB signature. For the metalness, this will be a mono signature. Same for the roughness. And for the normal, again, this will be an RGB channel. And to be extra correct here, on the normal, I want to set the type info to be an offset normal, since this is the type of normal that's usually coming in via textures. And for my color, I want to set the type info to be a color. Now let's mix all those channels together. So for this, let's use again a blend. And the channel coming in goes into the background, and the channel that we're creating in here goes into the foreground. And let's do the same thing 3 more times. Something like this. And now, as a final step for the blending, I want to drop down a null sort of as a reroute down here. I want to create another layer, a layer that in this case will be a mask. So let's set this to mono, and let's also set the type info to be a mask. And let's wire this into this null right here. And from this null, let's go into each and every mask input of those blend nodes. So something like this. After we're done blending in here, I want to have a way of switching between the output of those nodes and the output of those blended nodes, simply because in some cases we'll have this node, this digital asset that we're creating here, acting as the first layer, the base layer of a material that we're building. So there won't be any new PBR materials coming in through those channels. So in this case, I just want to choose the output of those 4 nodes in here. And for this, I can use a switch node. For the switch node, again, I want to create a reference copy. So again, actions, create a reference copy. And again, copy this node 2 more times for all of our channels down here. And now for each switch node, the first input is our blended material, and the second input is just the texture, like this. And our entire node tree now looks like this. Non-node tree itself is done. Let's now, before we create a digital asset, create some output placeholders. So let's drop down another few nulls in here as well. Something like this. And now let's maybe say for a scene, let's select all the nodes here in the middle, not our input placeholders right here, not our output placeholders in here. And let's hit the subnet icon right here to turn this into a subnet. There's some reordering we'll have to do on those inputs right here, but we can worry about this later. For now, I want to just right-click the subnet and hit Create a Digital Asset. This will bring up this menu right here. First of all, we can give this asset a name. So in this case, let's call it maybe PBR layer. Then we can select a tab submenu. In this case, I'm just going to use the default digital asset submenu. And we can also change the version name right here, or the internal name. I'm going to set the author to my own ENT for Intagma. PBR underscore layer is fine, and we're also adding a version number, which is always a good idea. And then we can choose a save spot for this digital asset. If you want to have this digital asset load into every new Houdini scene that you're going to create, this asset path here is fine. This documents Houdini 20.5 /OTLs, and here it is. However, in this case, I want to have this local to my project folder. So I'm going to expand this and set this to my hip/HDA directory right here. Let's hit create. Now, first of all, this has turned into a digital asset, and also we should have our type properties open right here. Or if you accidentally closed it, you can always right-click this node and choose type properties. And the first thing that we want to change, or that we want to adjust, here are the inputs and outputs because they got mixed up. So let's first of all worry about the inputs. Let's give them all the right names. Like this, and also the channels right here got mixed up, so let's change this as well. So just by double clicking, our diffuse will be RGB, metalness and roughness will be mono, normal will be RGB again, and mask will be mono again. And let's do the same for the output. So something like this. Let's hit apply. Now the order is correct, but a node here is complaining, probably because of the wrong inputs. So let's first of all fix this. Let's wire all the inputs in the right order. Let's also maybe make this a bit more compact. So something like this. And if we jump inside, we have to reorder this as well. So somewhere in here, we should have this input node. And we should wire in the right inputs to the right nodes. So the mask should go into the mask. The normal should go into the normal. Roughness seems to be correct. However, metalness isn't. This should go here. And the diffuse should go here like this. And let's also add some reroutes to make this look a bit nicer. And now each channel should be working again. And we have to fix the outputs as well. So something like this. And this is our new network. Now finally, the last thing that we need to do is to actually build the parameters for this node in this field right here. For this, first of all, I want to set up a lot of tabs. To do so, I'm going to go into the parameters tab inside my type properties, and I'm going to use folders for this. These are already set up to use tabs, and I'm going to create a folder, first of all, for loading in my files, then a folder for doing some general tweaks for all maps at once, and then a folder or a tab for each and every texture that we're going to load in. So first of all, the first folder should be the files folder for all file loading, then a general folder. And if I hit apply in here, I can already see I have those 2 tabs in here, and I'm going to create 4 more tabs for my 4 textures. Something like this. And now I can populate these tabs with parameters that I can find inside my subnet. And the simplest way to do this is to jump inside the subnet or the digital asset, to go to the node where a parameter lives, and to simply drag this parameter into the right folder. So for example, for my files, I'm going to take the file parameter and simply drag it into the files section right here, like this. And I'm also going to give each parameter a distinctive name by changing the label in here. So for example, the first file will be the diffuse channel. And now in here, if I hit apply on this diffuse node right here, the parameter is set by this channel, this file name in here, and this has a label of diffuse, which I can see if I jump outside of this node. So I'm going to do the same for all remaining parameters in here. And now I'm going to speed through the rest of this and just add a bunch of those simple parameters to the general tab, the diffuse tab, the metalness tab, the roughness tab, and the normal tab. And then we're going to talk about the few last remaining special parameters that we need to set up in here. So as you can see here on the general tab, I just dragged in all the parameters for my transform, and I only chose the first transform because all the other transform nodes will copy the values from the first one. For the diffuse, I chose all the parameters from the hue shift or the HSV adjust. For the roughness, I chose an output min and an output max and also a ramp. And the normal and the metalness are something that we should take a look at now. So for the metalness, on the one hand, I want to have a switch for choosing between the constant value right here and the map that we're loading in. So for this, I'm going to create a new toggle parameter inside this metalness, and I'm going to choose as a name for this parameter toggle solid without any white space in between. And the label should be toggle solid color. I'm going to hit apply once. I'm going to jump back to my main asset, to the metalness. I'm going to right click this parameter, say copy parameter, and inside here on my constant for the metalness texture, on the mask, I'm going to right click and paste a relative reference. And now I can toggle this mask basically with a checkbox. And also I have this value down here, which will be the metalness of the solid. So I'm going to drag this in, and I'm simply going to call it metalness. And I'm going to hit apply here. And for the normal, again, we have this strength parameter here that is simply blending between a normal without any bumps and a normal map. And I want to use this parameter here as a strength parameter. So let's simply drag this into the normal input, hit apply here. However, in this case, I want to invert this parameter right here or the slider right here because a value of 1 means we're mixing completely with this no bump normal map. So essentially the strength is 0. So to invert it, let's simply say 1 minus the parameter that we're referencing here, like this. And finally, on my channel tab, I want to have, again, a toggle to switch if this is the first layer inside my PBR workflow or not. So I want to control this switch right here. And in order to do so, let's go to the channel tab. Let's maybe, first of all, add in a separator to lay out this tab a bit nicer. And then let's drag in this select input parameter. Let's call it first layer, and let's set the type not to integer, but again to toggle to have a checkbox right here, and hit apply again. This should be all we need to do here, so let's hit accept as well. Now our type properties should close. We can jump back out. We can take a look at our different tabs in here. This all looks fine. We can also test the functionality. So within the normal, if I use the slider here, I can blend between my actual normal and the normal solid. On my roughness, I should be able to control the range, which I'm able to do. On the metalness, I'm able to switch to a solid color, and I can choose a value in here. However, in this case, the ramp of the slider is a bit odd. It goes up to 10, I think, so we should fix this. Let's open up our type properties again. Go to a metalness parameter, and down here in the range, let's set this from 0 to 1. Hit apply again. Now this looks more correct. Hit accept again. And for the diffuse, I should be able to adjust, for example, the hue shift, and I'm able to do that. And on the general tab, I should, for example, be able to adjust the uniform scale. So let's try this. And yeah, this is working as well. So this is our setup done. When this is our asset done, the last thing that we need to do in here is go to Assets, Save Asset, PBR Layer, and then also go to Asset and lock the PBR Layer asset. And this is our finished asset. So this is it for today. I hope you like this, and until next time, it's cheers and goodbye. And if you like what we're doing, please also consider becoming a patron of ours, not only for supporting Atagma, but for access to in-depth courses on topics such as KineFX, Vellum, Vex, Python, and maybe some future courses very, very soon, and so on and so forth. Also, let me say thank you so much for all of our existing patrons. Without you, this channel would not be possible. Thank you.